Research has shown that most portfolios lack sufficient diversification, causing them to underperform and assume more risk than necessary. How about yours? Is your portfolio sufficiently diversified? Or does your portfolio leave you more susceptible to the swings of the market than you need to be? Let's find out. This portfolio represents a fairly typical balanced portfolio, with about 60% of it allocated to U.S. stocks and the remaining 40% allocated to U.S. bonds. If a stock mutual fund were purchased, the stock portion of the portfolio might represent up to 500 different U.S. companies. And if a bond mutual fund were purchased, the bond portion of the portfolio might contain several hundred different bonds. While those numbers might sound pretty impressive on the surface, a deeper look reveals that this portfolio really only represents two asset classes: U.S. stocks and U.S. bonds. That's the equivalent of trying to make salsa by only using two ingredients. How good do you think salsa would taste with only tomatoes and onions? Even if you were to use 500 different kinds of tomatoes and hundreds of different kinds of onions, the salsa will not be very tasty. Simply put, salsa needs more ingredients. You need to add things like peppers, lime juice, cilantro, salt, vinegar, and so on to improve the results. The same holds true with your portfolio. You need more investment ingredients to improve your results. So, what kind of different investment ingredients can you add to your portfolio? To begin with, there are 7 different ingredients called core asset classes that each well-diversified portfolio should have. They include U.S. stocks, non-U.S. stocks, real estate, resources, U.S. bonds, non-U.S. bonds, and cash. Within each core asset class is one or more subcategories. The U.S. stocks core asset class contains 3 subcategories: large companies, medium-sized companies, and small companies. The non-U.S. stocks core asset class contains 2 subcategories: stocks in developed non-U.S. economies and stocks in emerging economies. The real estate core asset class contains only the real estate subcategory. The resources core asset class contains 2 subcategories: natural resources and commodities such as oil, gas, grains, metals, meats, etc. The U.S. bonds core asset class contains 2 subcategories: aggregate bonds and inflation-protected bonds. The non-U.S. bonds core asset class contains only the international bond subcategory. And the cash core asset class contains only the U.S. cash subcategory. In total, there are 7 core asset classes and 12 subcategories. Now that the ingredients have all been defined, what's the recipe? In other words, how much of each ingredient should a well-diversified portfolio contain? Based on extensive research by Dr. Craig L. Israelson, a longtime college professor of personal finance and regular contributor to Financial Planning magazine and the author of the book 712, A Diversified Investment Portfolio with a Plan, the answer is refreshingly simple: own them all equally. That's right, his research shows that owning an equal percentage of the 12 subcategories has generally outperformed other asset allocation strategies while greatly reducing the risks. So, instead of having a portfolio that looks like this, a well-diversified 7-12 portfolio would look like this. Further examination illustrates that the total percentage of a 7-12 portfolio represented by equities equals about 60%. The remaining 40% of the 7-12 portfolio represents fixed income type instruments. So overall, owning all 12 subcategories equally in a 7-12 portfolio ultimately follows the generally accepted 60-40 standard guideline of a balanced portfolio. Now, let's get to the research to truly understand the significance of this. Let's compare the results of 3 separate models over a 15-year period. The S&P 500 index, containing 500 large U.S. stocks, a 60% U.S. stock, 40% bond portfolio, and the diversified 7-12 portfolio, assuming you rebalance the portfolio once each year to ensure each of the 12 allocations stay equal. If you had initially invested $10,000 in each of these strategies back on January 1st, 1999, the $10,000 in an S&P 500 index fund would have grown to $19,585. The $10,000 in the 60/40 portfolio would have grown to $22,807. And the $10,000 in the 7/12 portfolio would have grown to $33,702. While that's impressive, what's even more important is looking at the consistency of returns over the 15-year period. To examine consistency, we'll look at rolling 3-year annualized returns. There were 13 of them during the 15-year period. The first 3-year rolling return was from 1999 to 2001. The next was 2000 to 2002, and so on. The average 3-year rolling annualized return for the S&P 500 was 3.11%. And 6 of the rolling 3-year returns were negative. The worst 3-year annualized was negative 14.6%. Ouch! The 60/40 portfolio averaged 4.87% over the 13 3-year rolling returns, and 3 of the rolling 3-year returns were negative, the worst of which was negative 4.92%. Finally, the 7/12 portfolio had an average 3-year rolling return of 8.15%. Of the 13 3-year rolling returns, the 7/12 portfolio had only one slightly negative annualized return of just negative 1.14%. These results clearly indicate that the increased diversification of the 7/12 portfolio can help improve performance and maintain consistency while also reducing risk. It's important to note that the 7/12 portfolio strategy can represent your entire portfolio, or it can represent a major component of a larger portfolio. Additionally, the allocation percentages can and probably should change as you move from one life stage to another. We have suggestions for that too. Give us a call to find out how a well-diversified 7/12 portfolio may help to achieve your investment objectives or be integrated with your current investment strategy to help increase your diversification and lower your investment risk.